good evening. Welcome to our Policy Board meeting. Thank you for joining us today. Before the meeting starts, I have a few announcements to make. In case of a fire, a bell will ring continuously. If this occurs, please leave the building immediately, following the green fire exit signs out to the assembly point, which is by the War Memorial on Duke Street. If anyone requires assistance, please let me know. Lifts should not be used. Please remain at the assembly point and do not attempt to return into the building until you have been advised that it is safe to do so. Regarding the facilities, the toilets are situated on the landing at the top of the main staircase and on the ground floor in the customer service centre. Regarding filming this meeting, anyone attending the meeting is entitled to film it, but I should point out that only the councillors, officers and anyone sitting around these tables may be filmed. Members of the public should not be filmed, so please ensure that cameras are pointed only in this direction. This meeting is also being broadcast via YouTube and recorded. When you're speaking, can I please remind the board to ensure you turn on your microphone and speak closely into it. A red light will appear on the middle button to indicate that your microphone is switched on. When you finish speaking, please do remember to turn your microphone off again. So if we start with apologies for absence, please, Freddie.
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from absence from Helen Ayres with Councillor Foster substituting, Pete Davey, Roy Whitehead with Councillor Scott substituting, Andrew Soshin with Councillor Frank substituting, and Councillor Paul Clark with Councillor Hyland substituting. Thank you.
Can I please ask the board, are there any declarations of interest at this point? No, lovely. Can I ask the members of the board to agree the minutes of the last meeting? You want to sign this one?
Yeah.
We've received one public question for this meeting. These had to be submitted by 7 p.m. on Wednesday and were published on the agenda page yesterday evening and circulated to board members who will have had the opportunity to read them ahead of this meeting. If the member of the public is not present, their question will be taken as read by the board. And I understand that Jeremy Potter will respond to the question within his presentation for item 5. I believe the member of the public is here and they don't wish to read their question, but if you do, you're very welcome to. You'll read it? Lovely. Please.
Chair, councillors, let's start with a staggering fact. Over 22,000 objections were submitted against Hammond's Farm and the Pigeon Industrial Site in this local plan. You'd never know it from reading the summary because that number is buried. Across all 3 consultation stages, 22,000 objections have been lodged, believed to be more than any other local plan campaign in the UK. Just let that sink in for one moment. That's not just a response. It's a democratic equivalent of a fire alarm. And still, your final report buries those objections. You say you value transparency, but this isn't transparency, it's a magic trick. The objections went in, and spin and PR came out. This isn't democracy, it's damage control. And here's the part that nobody wants to say out loud. You're not just misleading the public, you're being misled yourselves, councillors. You're being handed a narrative wrapped in PR, backed by spin, and asked to sign it off, like a delivery from Amazon. Why was the largest local plan objection in Chelmsford's history, and possibly the UK, buried somewhere in this report? Over 22,000 objections, all submitted in good faith, and yet your officers chose to reduce them to a duplication or amplification, as stated in black and white on page 257 of tonight's agenda pack. This isn't just inaccurate, it is willfully misleading, breathtakingly arrogant, and morally indefensible. These weren't just spam. They were detailed, reasoned, and heartfelt concerns from real people. People who spoke about flooding, traffic, ancient woodland, heritage, farmland, legal process, and more. And you chose to strip those voices of their meaning and reframe them as an administrative note. Will you now vote tonight to ensure that all objections are published in full within this document and submitted unedited to the planning inspector. Not a filtered summary, not a themed digest, not a sanitized spreadsheet, but the actual words that people wrote. Because anything less would be deliberate obstruction of due process. The public engaged in good faith, they deserve to be heard by you and by the inspector. If you allow this document to go through unchanged, you are not approving a plan, you're rubber stamping a cover-up, co-signing a betrayal of process, a betrayal of public trust, and a betrayal of every resident who believed this council still stood for something. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight to read that question. As I'd mentioned, Jeremy will be responding to it as part of your overall presentation, I believe.
Yes, but it will be my colleague Claire Stuckey.
Sorry,
Thank
Claire.
you.
So this feels like a good opportunity to move into that presentation now.
Good evening, Chair, members. The purpose of this report is to provide feedback on the main issues raised in the consultation responses to the local plan pre-submission or Regulation 19 document and its supporting integrated impact assessment. It also provides information on the work being undertaken to prepare the next stage of the plan review or submission of the plan for examination. Starting with the pre-submission consultation, the board will be aware that this ran for 6 weeks earlier in the year, ending on the 8th of March. It represented the third and final technical consultation on the plan and sought to gather views on whether it complies with all relevant legislation and regulations and meets a series of soundness tests as set out in national planning policy. A comprehensive programme of consultation took place. This exceeded the requirements set out in legislation and commitments in the Council's own adopted Statement of Community Involvement, and involved a range of activities, including direct email and letter notifications to more than 6,300 contacts on our local plan database, 25 social media feeds, posts and stories, 19 days of public exhibitions, 147 site notices, and 5 presentations to stakeholders, including parish and town councils and local planning authorities. And more information on the consultation undertaken is provided in the pre-submission feedback report attached to Appendix 1 of your covering report this evening. We received a high level of response to the consultation. 6,725 representations from 2,798 respondents, including residents, developers, businesses, parish and town councils, and other statutory bodies such as Historic England and the Environment Agency. And Section 3 of the feedback report provides a summary of the main issues raised in the comments and any requested changes in those comments to the plan. It's important to note that the feedback report doesn't seek to report on every point or every issue raised, as this would result in an extremely long report, but all of the representations can be viewed in full online. Also at this stage, no attempt has been made to analyse or provide a council response to the representations. This will be done alongside submission of the plan. So effectively, you're considering a Stage 1 You Said feedback report tonight, with the Stage 2 You Said and Our Response feedback report to follow once we've assessed the comments in full. And this follows the same approach we've done previously, and I'll say a little bit more about that later on. A high-level overview of the main issues raised to the consultation is presented in the feedback report and section 3 of your covering report. And overall, this describes that a wide variety of feedback was received, ranging from general comments to technical observations around detailed policy wording in particular. Most government agencies or national bodies either support the plan outright or offer qualified support, subject to some minor amendments. There was a mix of support from parish and town councils, with many suggesting changes for minor modifications to the deletion of site allocations in their entirety. Most public comments object to one or more aspects of the plan, though there was also some limited support. Hammond's Farm and land adjacent to the A12 at junction 18, the employment area, so site allocations 16A and 16B in the plan, received a significant number of objections, mainly from the public and parishes the site spans, and for multiple reasons, including traffic, landscape, flood risk and heritage, and with calls for their removal from the plan. Most public comments were sent via the Say No to Hammond's Farm website, a coalition of Boreham, Sandon, Danbury and Little Baddow parish councils. And there was also a high level of objections for similar reasons to Hammond's Farm to the proposed new small housing sites in Bicknaker. So that's sites 11B and 11C. Many expressed concern that the spatial strategy is too reliant on larger strategic sites, particularly the two garden communities, and that a sufficient range of reasonable alternative approaches and site options have not been considered or appraised. Many developers and landowners and their agents support development proposed on their sites included within the draft plan, with some seeking changes to site allocation policy wording and site boundaries, whilst other developers are raising objections to the plan not allocating their specific land or sites for development. There was a mix of support and opposition to the development requirements within the plan, mainly from the development industry, with calls for the housing requirement in particular to be increased and for sites to be allocated in the Green Belt and the Green Wedge. Some developers, parish councils and the public are challenging compliance with the duty to cooperate, including questioning whether all bodies have been properly engaged and neighbouring unmet housing needs properly considered. And there was also some criticism from parish councils and the public regarding the consultation process itself, including a lack of adequate engagement and that the process for making comments was too complicated. Before I move on, Chair, I will respond to Mr. Roach's statement and start by acknowledging all the local people and communities across the Council's area who engaged with the pre-submission consultation. The feedback report is a main item on tonight's agenda. It doesn't contain misleading or buried information and instead meets the requirements of legislation and the commitment set out in the Council's adopted Statement of Community Involvement. It also follows a logical sequence of the draft local plan itself and does not attribute weight to specific comments over any others. The feedback report is published online and notifications have been sent to all of those who made a representation during the consultation period. It clearly sets out the feedback received, as do feedback reports on previous consultation stages in 2022 and 2024, and it's the same process the Council undertook for previous local plans that have all been found sound and legally compliant. It isn't true to say that the process incorrectly treats comments as irrelevant, duplicative or mere amplifications. On the contrary, the feedback report contains 17 pages summarising the comments related to Hammonds Farm, Site 16A, covering all the distinct issues raised by Mr Roche and many more, and over 9 pages summarising comments relating to Site 16B, land adjacent to the A12 Junction 18 employment area. The draft plan will be examined by an independent government inspector on the issues raised, rather than the number of people raising the issue. So, for example, many of the representations received to both sites concern landscape and heritage impacts, and many of those received from the public have used similar wording. So whilst the strength of feeling is absolutely recognised, it doesn't cause an issue to be more serious. The site allocations are also supported by an extensive evidence base, many of which have been undertaken by expert consultants. Whilst there's been a significant level of response to Sites 16A and B, over 5,700 combined as reported in the feedback report, we don't recognise the figure of 22,000 objections quoted by Mr Roche, which is much higher than the overall number of responses received to the consultation from the 2,798 respondents. And finally, I'll just add that the Council also has a statutory duty to produce a local plan and to meet its development needs. So if I move on now to the pre-submission integrated impact assessment, or IIA for short, this assessed the pre-submission plan against a range of social, environmental, economic, health and equality indicators, advising on ways any adverse impacts could be avoided, reduced or mitigated, and how positive effects could be maximised. We had far fewer consultation responses as expected, so 54 to the document from 39 respondents, and these have been analysed by the Council's consultants in the feedback report attached to Appendix 2. Overall, there was support for the integrated impact assessment and its analysis across the responses. Specific concerns are summarised in Section 4 of your report and include a lack of justification and evidence for the site allocations, questioning of the IIA scoring for specific indicators, that alternative options are more suitable, including higher housing growth options and alternative development sites, an objection to the lack of Greenbelt review and disagreement with the protection of the green wedge. The feedback report includes a summary of the consultee responses and a response describing how the comments and minor suggested changes could be addressed, such as through a short addendum if required. If I now turn to the next step, Section 5 of your covering report describes that submission of the plan for examination is expected to take place in December. Submission was originally programmed for around now to meet a government deadline, but this has subsequently been pushed back 18 months. Submission later on in the year will give time to fully analyse the high level of comments received and to ensure that we have all the necessary documentation in place. And we intend to reflect the adjusted submission date in an updated local development scheme. This is the Council's plan-making timetable for consideration by this board in September. Section 5 of your covering report also reports on work undertaken to prepare the documents for submission alongside the plan itself. This includes a Regulation 22 Statement of Consultation, which will provide a focused Council response to the main issues raised in the pre-submission plan. And as I mentioned earlier, members, this will be the Stage 2 You Said Our Response feedback report and is intended to help the inspector and respondents understand the Council's position going into the examination. It's also anticipated that a schedule of additional local plan modifications will be produced, setting out minor changes the council would like to make to the plan, for example, to reflect new information or to improve clarity. And this is an entirely normal part of the process and will add to the robustness of the plan. In addition, discussions will also continue with duty to cooperate bodies on new or updated statements of common ground in line with national planning policy. In conclusion, Chair, the pre-submission consultation was the final consultation period on the review of the adopted Chelmsford plan. It was supported by a strong consultation strategy, attracted a high level of response from a wide range of individuals and organisations. The representations will be considered and then collated and submitted with the plan and other supporting documentation for examination. Submission will take place in December, following approvals by this board, the Council's Cabinet and full Council later in the year. Thank you. I now move you to the recommendations on page 1 of your covering report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open up the floor to questions. I can see Councillor Jeeps.
This is more an observation than a question, but I think it involves a question about the process itself. I totally support the member of the public's comments on this and the way that this is perceived by people who have an emotional connection with what is going on and want to preserve the beauty of Chelmsford and its green outlying areas. In terms of the way that this document reads, people that have a very high level of monetary motivation to challenge and use experts to do that seem to feature much higher than members of the public who will struggle to do that because they do not either have the means nor the knowledge to do so. And I think it would be very important in the document to actually reflect what the gentleman said, which is the strength of feeling, the huge strength of feeling that opposes this particular development, for good reason, with the reasons that they have put. I don't think it comes across strong enough. It is probably part of the way that the policy rolls out, but in this circumstance, given what has been said, which I accept, I think it needs to be written much stronger in this document to reflect public concerns. I have other points to make, but I'll leave that one perhaps to be answered.
I'd just like to get an answer to that one and then I'll come back to you.
So, Councillor Jeeps' comments, just to preface the fact that the regulations that we have to adhere to set out that we have to set out what the main issues are from representations and also the headline data in terms of how many people said what to and how many respondents there were. I suppose it is for an examination to determine the strength of the arguments that the objections or the support that's put into an examination, and the inspector will be undertaking that. So essentially what we're trying not to do is to skew that. We're just reporting faithfully what people have told us, and that's what the Regulation 22, the feedback document does. It sets out that in a factual manner.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Councillor Jeeps actually said everything that I wanted to say, but I would like to add that everything that's put out there is fine and good, but this is a democratic country and the people's voice is not being heard. And I think that I'm very, very surprised. When the gentleman who asked the question gave those figures, they're extraordinary figures, but they should have been featured in the Regulation 22 policy form.
I'd find it helpful just to go back to the figures on that point, because I think there seems to be a discrepancy here. Could we clarify?
Yes, so we can clarify, maybe if we just go back to that slide. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the amount of representations, comments received, and the respondents to this stage of consultation are just about to appear on your screen, and that is 6,725 comments from 2,798 respondents. Now, I believe that the member of the public would have come to another view about and extrapolated that from a series of different consultations, petitions, all of that data that may well be held by the campaign Say No to Hammond's Farm. But what we're here tonight to do is to discuss the consultation responses from the last round of consultation, and that is the facts. 6,725 individual comments from 2,798 respondents.
Thank you. I just hope that it is all placed in Regulation 19, that it's all visible. Thank you very much.
Councillor Franks.
Yeah, I just wanted to state that I think officers have done a good job on summarising response to this and the submission in general, just in respect to the restrictions that are placed upon them by the regulations and how we are required to submit it to the inspectorate. So that I just wanted to thank officers for the work they've done. It's not an easy job with something with this depth of feeling, so I think I'm thankful for the work they've put in.
I'd also like to second that as well. The volume of responses that we've received back, that the officers have analysed and processed as part of this, I think is it shows that there is a genuine desire to engage with the public. Jeremy has a response.
I just wanted to clarify one other matter. The inspector will receive the final version of this document, the kind of you said and our response. But they will also receive every single individual representation. The inspector will receive every single one. So rest assured, the inspector will be busy reading all of those, but they will receive every single representation that was made.
And just to check, Jeremy, that's verbatim. They will receive the full...
Full and verbatim, unredacted. The only time that we redact comments is where there's an issue in relation to any kind of particular problem in the sense of language and so forth that we can't publish ourselves, but the inspector will receive full unredacted comments.
So hopefully that addresses some of the concerns. Councillor Dukes, I do see your hand up. Councillor Young has had her hand up slightly longer.
Thank you. I just wondered if in the minutes of the meeting we could just make the point that Mr. Potter's just made about the information that does go to the inspector, just so it's there in the public view, so people can actually see that that's not just expected of us, but what we would expect to happen as a council, that there is no hiding of those comments whatsoever. And if I could just have a second question, and it was really just to clarify the process, the timescale again. I saw the timescale for the submission, but I think it would just be, we talked about when things might be coming back into this chamber, not just with the policy board, but cabinet and full council. Is it possible just to clarify that, because I don't think we've got all those dates sort of written down in chronological order, and I'm just not sure. Is it possible?
Thank you, Councillor. So the intention is to come back to this board in November. We would then go to Council Cabinet in November, early December, I think, and then full Council in December. I think there are all the dates in the calendar, but we will work closely with our colleagues in committee services to make sure that the timings are appropriate. But stage one is to hear then the Cabinet, then full Council, November, December of this year.
Okay, thank you. So there'll be more opportunities for the public to be involved again. So that's clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Jeeps.
Thank you, Chair. I had one other point, again, where I didn't feel, I know it's an incomplete document at the moment, but there are several places where the contributors to this feedback have made mention of the West Chelmsford sites that have been rejected, where there is already infrastructure, where there does seem to be more advantages to doing that than having to build right from the start with bridges, and I hope not another bridge to nowhere costing 40 million, but bridges, infrastructure and all the rest of it, when there are other sites that appear to have those things in place that would be able to be extended and supported. I see the rationale, but most of the rebuttals are a kind of repeat of a stock answer to that without the detail as to why, in terms of preference, given what we've said about the feelings against it and why they're opposed, that this is not being considered and given more attention in terms of the response and the detail of why it's been rejected. Thank you.
So, I mean, we would have assessed all of the major sites to determine whether they're suitable for inclusion within the plan. There's a number of different factors that we determine whether that is the case or not. Obviously, their capacity is an important part of that because we've got a very large housing number to accommodate. And also, we test that through the IIA, the Integrated Impact Assessment, to look at reasonable alternatives to our strategy. And groupings of the West Chelmsford sites were looked at in terms of those clusters to test whether there were better options than the one that we put forward in this plan. I mean, all of these things are finely balanced, but our evidence shows that the benefits of allocating the sites in the pre-submission on balance provide the most appropriate strategy for this council to take when considering the housing requirement and employment requirement that is before us to accommodate in our area.
Councillor Jeeps.
Yeah, I thank you for that. And these this challenges are not in terms of the fact I understand a lot of work has been done, but you can see how important this is, not only to the council, but to the people of Chelmsford. And I think it's very important that there is a transparency about answers and rationale for different decisions, because at the moment, that document that I read does not give me that sense of balance or the answers that I'd be seeking to justify one against the other. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there's a difference of opinion. Officers have said that they've met their legal obligations, that there's other opportunities to engage with this over the coming months. At this point, I'd like to consider that we move the recommendation 1 and 2 of the report, which is essentially setting out that we're noting the outcomes of the consultation that have been gathered and presented before us today, and give delegated authority to make any necessary minor amendments in terms of phrasing and so on. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Young. And Fuller, the enthusiasm. So this will need to be voted on with a clear show of hands rather than just assent. So can I ask all of those that are happy to agree with the recommendations as they are set out? And if you go counting, yeah. And can I have those who are against the recommendations? And any abstentions? I guessed it would have been the last hand. Okay, thank you. So that's carried forward. So if we can then move on to the second item on the agenda, which is homelessness and rough sleeper strategy, and that report is being introduced by Paul Gaylor.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. There isn't a presentation, but I did think some of you have had enough presentations from me about homelessness over the last couple of years. This is a strategy, it's a legal requirement for all local housing authorities to produce a homelessness strategy, no less than once every 5 years. Setting now, it demonstrates really that, first of all, we understand what all of our legal duties are under the homeless legislation, but also we know what the needs are as well. So it's bringing together not only what our duties are, but also what our priorities amongst those duties have to be. Over the last 5 years, it's been an interesting 5 years, I think, is a good euphemism to say. Shortly after the last one was produced, we had COVID, we've had the war in Afghanistan, people coming over to be housed, we've had the Homes for Ukraine scheme, and we've seen the cost of private rent, which used to be a substitute for those who needed affordable housing, get to levels now which is unaffordable for anybody who's on a low income in Chelmsford now. I think it's about the 7th or 8th most expensive district in the country to rent. And alongside that, the supply in terms of lettings of affordable housing has continued to reduce as well, unfortunately, to a point when actually about 80% of the increase we've had in temporary accommodation directly corresponds to that reduction in supply. We have, however, in the last 2 or 3 years, managed to slow down the rate of the need for temporary accommodation, and we hope to continue doing that and also slow down the cost as well, because that is a real concern, as you may be aware, for many local authorities. We've made good progress in that time as well, tackling rough sleeping, getting more resources specifically for rough sleeping and for other forms of homelessness as well, and beginning now to look at other options. I think the idea that there is a housing crisis is well and truly established now, and that also, I think the naivety that it's just a glitch, it'll go away soon, is something which I think most housing authorities are coming to terms with as well, and we're having to take longer term plans to manage and mitigate the impact of that. This strategy, as I say, it covers us for 5 years. It won't be fit for purpose, if I'm honest, throughout the whole of that period, because as we've seen in the previous 5 years, things change quite quickly. So we need to be flexible. Consequently, the action plan itself, most of those actions are what you'd say, I suppose, for a strategy short to medium term, 12 months, 18 months to 3 years at the optimum, really. Partly because also we've made good progress in the previous strategy. I think we completed all the actions in the first version of that within about 2 years, despite those challenges. And what we do as a housing service, some of you may be aware, we don't monitor just every year, we monitor every month what the changes are in terms of housing need, causes of homelessness and such like. And what we want to be able to do is actually make sure that it's a constantly iterative process. So we will constantly review it and actually once we've completed some actions, not just say, there you go, put our feet up, but there'll always be a need to do more. So we want to keep it very much a living document. We have, I mentioned, with finding ways of actually producing more, working with partners to get more supported housing. That is especially beneficial for those. We have about a third of all those in temporary accommodation are single people, and about 80% of those have a mental health issue. And if I'm honest, just temporary accommodation, it puts a roof over their head, but many will struggle without adequate support as well. So it's something we're beginning to work with. We hope to actually have, I think we've got about an extra 30 or 40 additional units of supported housing, for example, with Chess. This year alone, we want to actually see if we can exceed that in the following year as well. But it's not just for mental health. Domestic abuse is an area which warrants particular attention for us in this area, in this council, because as a cause of homelessness, it's 3 times higher than a national, regional and county-wide average. Some of the reasons we suspect we know, others we don't, but we're working now with partners. We've made really good progress for the last few months. So it feels a little bit like this action plan's a little bit stale already, but trust me, we are making progress. You can't just come up with an idea and hope to implement it overnight. We're working closely with the police and other colleagues to tackle that. But fundamentally, we really want to actually keep working on the fact that prevention really is better than cure. And as part of that, we're also going to be working with our comms team. This is quite innovative for a local housing authority, just to explain what homelessness is actually about. We know from a consultation we did about 6 or 8 months ago, many people think it's rough sleeping, which is true, but they think that's the vast majority, and it is so not. That's about 5% of what we deal with. It is families with children, is the majority in temporary accommodation. That really gets identified. And for people who find themselves homeless, they do think what's gone wrong. Unfortunately, it's not that uncommon nowadays. What we can't do, though, is guarantee that we can resolve it immediately or very quickly by finding suitable housing permanently. It does mean we've got to work with them in temporary accommodation. We're struggling to get enough suitable temporary accommodation in Chelmsford itself, which is distressing. And it's just really frustrating that if people know in advance the consequences of becoming homeless, you can't always stop the inevitable happening, but at least it means that actually some of the agencies who support them understand the consequences and will work with us to let us know sooner rather than later. So it's an interesting 5 years ahead. By the time this strategy needs to be renewed again, I don't know where I'll be or what this authority will be either. So, but hopefully some of that will bring opportunities as well. The idea that we could be working more closely with social care and other organisations, I can see some positives there as well. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your work on this and pulling it together. It's been very interesting to read. Can I open up the floor to some questions? I think Councillor Young, you indicating or no?
No, I was just going to thank Paul for the work not just of Paul but of his whole team in what is a real challenging situation. And I was actually going to reflect that who knows what's going to happen over the next 5 years too. So that was all my question was going to be. And I'm happy to move the recommendations if there are no other questions.
Yeah. Do we have a seconder? Oh, sorry, are there any other questions? Councillor Thorpaps.
Yeah, thank you for the report. So I suppose in terms of rough sleeping, I mean, anecdotally, because I commute into London, so I walk through the high street every morning, and I do see quite a bit of it, and it feels to me as though it's something that's got quite a bit worse over the last 10 years or so. And you say that we have a much higher rate of homelessness than the national average. Is that because, and I've heard this before, that people come into Chelmsford from the neighbouring towns because they think that in some way Chelmsford is the place to be, the streets are lined with gold. Do we have any data on that and people coming in from outside? And then my second point, more of a point really than a question, was on the action plan itself, which I think broadly is good, but I notice on some of the points you don't really have deliverables as such. So, which one was it? So, for example, 1.2 on the action plan, you say, ensuring everyone sleeping rough in Chelmsford has access to diagnosis and support for mental health. But you don't say at all, what would be an indication of success of that action. So you don't say, I don't know, a third of rough sleepers or whatever it might be have accessed local healthcare, local diagnosis. So I wonder if we came back to look at this in 2030, which I suppose we won't do because obviously it will be different authorities then. So as you sort of alluded to, we don't really know where this is going. But how would we measure that? And there are a few of those in the action plan. That perhaps it would be nice to see them slightly strengthened in terms of deliverables. So those were my two points, really. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I should clarify, levels of homelessness in Chelmsford overall are not too much away from what the national average is. It's specifically domestic abuse is 3 times higher. With regards to rough sleeping, what we see is the number each month of people sleeping rough is high. You're quite right, certainly higher than it's higher than we officially knew 10 years ago, but 10 years ago we counted it in a slightly different way. We've now got a team of navigators for the last 5 years who are out on the streets every weekday, certainly sometimes weekends as well, and will make contact with anybody they see who is sleeping or appears to be sleeping rough. There's a very small number, literally about 5 or 6, we say are very entrenched. Some of those have slept rough through a whole lifetime of this strategy, but it is it's literally 3 or 4. Others, it's far shorter. And we've got a group who actually sleep rough, we accommodate, and then they reappear in about 12 months' time. That's the thing we're actually now working with partners like Chest. They most probably need longer in accommodation than they've had it previously, because They're ready to move, they say, but we just think the evidence is they fail for various reasons. I take the point also about making the action plan smarter. We did consider that. One of the challenges is you'll see a lot of this is about partnership working. And it's very difficult for me to say to you at this stage, we're going to do this and it will give that. What we do though, as I did say, we do keep regular monitoring. All of the contracts we've got now, we're actually going through a process of putting those into a far more formal way of reviewing. We've got the people who manage temporary accommodation are becoming involved in monitoring some of those outcomes as well, because they deal with private landlords. They're in a good place to also work with supported housing providers as well. So we can actually see what it is. The bad answer would be, we'll come back to you in 5 years' time to hear what we've achieved. What I think we want to be able to say, and I think we should be able to do it, is each year we can come back and say, with rough sleepers, whatever it might be, we did this and it's had this reduction. It might actually, we do this, we're going to be honest, it might still go up because of other factors which cause it. But at least if we monitor all of this, we can start to track what's happening. And that's what we did with domestic abuse. We saw there's a lot, but we didn't know what it was like elsewhere. What we don't know of domestic abuse, and we really find this hard to actually work out how we can do it, is how many people have left Chelmsford as a result of domestic abuse, as well as how many come in. And that touches on the point you said, Councillor, about are we attracting people? Yeah, we are. I'll be honest with you, because if you look around Essex, all of our neighbours are more rural. We know that if you were to lose your home in one of the neighbouring authorities, there's more facilities here in Chelmsford as a city than there are elsewhere. It's logical in a way, but what we're keen to do is actually work with our neighbouring authorities, we have been for the last few years with rough sleepers, to actually help them get back to that district, to say to that district, and this is why the rough sleeper funding, a lot of it is actually for the whole of Mid-Essex, because it'd be silly if we would say we're going to work with it in Chelmsford. And to be fair, if our partners aren't getting some resources as well to help them take those people back, make them options to return, and in some cases, some people, they're better off staying in Chelmsford, but some Chelmsford people are better off going there as well. So I think we have to be quite grown up about that. We're getting there. There's still, all of this, there's more work to be done. I'd like to have another 30 years doing a job sometimes, to be honest with you, just to see it completed. But it is all very much work in progress. But also the partners, we don't know where those partners are going to, how they're going to be working in the next few years. We've seen some really big changes to some of the other public services in the lifetime of last strategy. So I don't want to be a hostage to fortune and say we'll achieve this percentage, but we will monitor to make sure those actions are effective. And say if they're not working, we will change them. It's an iterative process. Is that gives you some confidence? It's a mature answer rather than a bit of flannel, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, it's a very helpful answer. Thank you. I do appreciate the context and the difficulties. So thanks very much.
Councillor Franks and then Councillor Scott. Oh, sorry, Councillor Foley, were you seconding the motion or did you have a question? I had a question. Oh, sorry. Well, okay. Councillor Fuller, Councillor Franks, Councillor Scott.
I was interested in the comment about the need for early referrals from other agencies. I don't know if you can unpack that a bit. Is it a case that those agencies are sort of short of people, therefore they can't do the work, or how can we sort of facilitate that?
We have now got what's called a duty to refer. So under the Homeless Reduction Act now, some agencies, for example, the prison, social care, they have a legal duty now. They come across any of their customers who they think are at risk of becoming homeless, not homeless, but even at risk of, they should refer them to us. And that works quite well with some agencies, but not with others. And I don't know if that's down to capacity. I think it's actually understanding. If I'm honest, it's much more down to us actually building up relationships with those agencies as well. There's other organisations, GPs, for example, they haven't got that duty. And it's quite frustrating. So what we're trying to do is actually work with them to say, you might not have a legal duty, but it'd be good if you had an obligation. They don't quite get it often. I understand why, and it goes back to a comment I said earlier about working with our comms team, because if you think that you can just send a person to the council and they will house you, what's the problem? It's a fact that now you can send them to us and we really do struggle. And if we do house them, it might be in an area away from where that agency is or where that doctor is. We're finding education's a real challenge for us at the moment because some places there's just no capacity in the local schools when we move a family to another area. So working with those different organisations, those agencies, and with those individuals as well, to explain what the housing situation really means nowadays. We're not shying away from our legal duties, quite the opposite, but we can't kid people. So, and that is why that referring them as soon as they can really does make sense. On the other hand, gone are the days, I'm afraid, I've had to say this several times this year already, we can't just go and see people who just want to know about their housing options, because caseloads are 3 times what they should be at the moment. So, but it's work, again, keep working at it, just to highlight, and I think if people know the consequences of becoming homeless, that tends to motivate them to then want to work with us. The police said this year to me, just a few weeks back, didn't realise it was quite like this. So we thought, great, now we know. Do you know what I mean? You feel that actually we're starting, but it does make me feel as though I'm being a bit miserable, because some kids saying, oh, you never guess how bad it is. But they say, oh, no, tell us. So there is genuine enthusiasm, and we did see it in some of the consultations as well, Councillor Fuller as well, so yeah.
Thank you. So Councillor Franks and then Councillor Scott.
Thank you. I've seen earlier this month about the government has announced its intention to repeal the Vagrancy Act, and I just wanted to ask if you foresee that might change anything in regards to the work that you're doing. Obviously, it's a good thing that we're decriminalising homelessness, but there are obviously different extensions to the law as they've suggested that they're planning to make. Do you expect that might change caseloads or change your work in any way?
No. I tell you what, because actually we still come, and actually this is where our housing team works very close to our community safety team. It doesn't mean to say that anybody who could be sleeping rough is still impervious from causing a problem for other reasons. So although the Vagrancy Act is, and I don't think we're particularly looking at Mr Brooks, because he's must really got more experience over the years of touching on that than I have really from an enforcement point of view, but it's more we find people still cause antisocial behaviour, and actually sometimes a fair proportion of those who cause antisocial behaviour may present to people as if they're sleeping rough. They're not known to us to be rough sleepers. We welcome them every day, and vice versa. So yeah, but I would say the government certainly has recognised the need to put more resources into rough sleeping, and that's why we've managed to make the progress we have in the last few years.
Of course, Paul.
See, now Paul's referred to me, I will say, although I don't know, I'd be extremely surprised if the police have ever used that act in the last 20 years. If they arrest somebody who's rough sleeping, it's because of other antisocial behaviour that's occurring, not just for the fact that they're sleeping rough on the streets.
Yeah, just to clarify, I didn't expect that we did use the Act, but there are things attached within the Act itself that there are other powers that might have been used, and the change to them might have affected the way you enforce them, but thank you for the answer.
Councillor Scott.
Actually, Councillor Fuller has covered everything I was going to say, but can I say thank you? Brilliant job. And I think my colleague thinks so.
Thank you. Well, we had Councillor Hyland and then Councillor Thorpe. This is clearly a very interesting topic, and then Councillor Bryan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paul. Excellent report. I enjoyed the read, and I like the level of detail that you've gone into this on this report. One of the things that you sort of touched on just now about this is not a Chelmsford problem, this is a Mid-Essex problem. So do you have some form of duty to cooperate with those other councils that we may in the near future be working with?
No. We have a duty to engage from when we all do our strategy, so we all share each other's to a greater or less extent, but nothing like colleagues in planning have that duty to cooperate. But you may have gathered that housing officers are quite a gregarious lot, including some who used to be housing officers in the past. So we do have a very good network. We've got Essex Housing Officers Group. We work very closely. A lot of people move. I'll be honest with you, it's a very personable thing, because you find someone goes from a local authority into a housing association, then goes to another authority. So we tend to, and even myself, I've been around a bit. I've been to other authorities, to be honest with you. So I think we've got a good feel for most districts, and we've got a very good system. If someone in a senior position comes into one of the authorities, we work for Essex Housing Officers Group to make sure they've got all those contacts, because customs move around. The agencies cover wider areas in our districts as well at the moment, and I just don't think you could really do the job in total isolation, to be honest with you, notwithstanding the fact that actually even the housing options nowadays, we have to look further afield as well. So we're all putting people, we've moaned about London in previous years, we're all doing it to a greater or lesser extent with our own people now in neighbouring districts, but sometimes that is a better option for them because it might be where work is or where it's more affordable for them to rent. So, but in some ways I'm thinking, this is why I'm quite mildly optimistic about LGR. I'm looking forward to actually having, I've often said it's like working for the same branch of Barclays or Lloyds. The different ones are in different districts, but you're all doing the same thing, aren't you? So, yeah.
I think you want to come back.
Yeah, thank you. That's great because best practice gets shared and we all get better about that, I can see. The point made earlier by Councillor Thorpe-Apps about metrics within your report, I think would be welcome if you could deep dive into that.
Yeah, certainly, and we do make, we're trying to do it more frequently, but we do, I think for our comms team, share what we monitor every month, which is number of properties available, number of homeless cases, number, how much each officer's got as a caseload even, how long it takes to be housed, the cost of temporary, all of that is there. We've got a massive amount. I've spared you all in the past, but you're quite welcome for us if we can find the time to, maybe 6 monthly snapshot would be a helpful thing to have. And also that will tie into the action plan as well, if that would be helpful.
I think that's made it into the minutes. Councillor Thorpe-Apps and then Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you. We're just talking about the Vagrancy Act, but I was also reminded that we have a public spaces protection order in the city centre as well. And likewise, I was wondering if that is that used against or in relation to homeless people in any way? Have there been instances of that? Thank you.
So the PSPO is put in place to stop antisocial behaviour. Now, it will be, and it has been the case, that some of that antisocial behaviour is caused by people who are rough sleeping. It's not because they're rough sleeping, it's because of the antisocial behaviour they're engaged in. And some particularly nasty, aggressive begging. So there's been examples of I'll say so-called rough sleepers because not all of these are rough sleepers. They just pretend to rough sleep to gain sympathy and therefore money. But some rough sleepers have basically marched young females to cash points to get them to withdraw money. That's the kind of behaviour and antisocial behaviour, but it's certainly not against rough sleepers. It's just that some of those rough sleepers will be partaking in the antisocial behaviour those PSPOs are trying to stop, as well as other members of the other local residents will engage in that behaviour, and again they'll be enforced against.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Councillor O'Brien.
Yes, Madam Chair, my points have just subsequently been answered, but I'd just like to finally add thank you for your candidness and your openness tonight. It's a breath of fresh air for this committee. Thank you.
I think that was a compliment. I know. It'll be in the minutes, read it when they're published. I think we've had a really good discussion, and I'm happy to move the recommendations. I won't read them. They are there, you've seen them. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Fuller, thank you. This will need to be voted on with a clear show of hands rather than just assent. So can I ask all of those who are for the recommendations? I know, it always seems pointless asking those who are against and those who are abstaining, but I think that's fine. Lovely. Thank you very much. The last item on the agenda this evening, I believe, is going through the work programme, which Freddie will be going through. Or not. Sorry.
Yes, the work programme is just set out in the report. It's just for agreeing. Thank you. Or comments if you have.
That was short and sweet. Are there any questions from that? No. Okay. Okay. I believe we've reached the end of the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Enjoy your evenings. Maybe go listen to the music that's happening outside. Take care.